The most valuable resource in the modern world isn't oil. It isn't money. And it isn't even data. Because every company on Earth is now competing for something far more limited. Your attention. And unlike money, attention can't be created. It can't be printed. It can't be manufactured. You only have so much of it. 24 hours, one mind. Which means every minute you spend watching, scrolling, clicking, or even thinking has value. Far more value than most people realize. Because behind the scenes, some of the most powerful companies in history are fighting a silent battle. Not for your money, not for your data, but for control of your focus. And once you see the system, you start noticing it everywhere. A few decades ago, attention wasn't considered an asset. It was simply part of life. People watched television, read newspapers, listened to the radio, and businesses paid for advertising because it was one of the few ways to reach large groups of people. Simple. But something changed. The internet arrived. And for the first time in history, human attention became measurable. Every click, every search, every second spent looking at a screen, suddenly, attention wasn't invisible anymore. It became data. And once attention became data, it became a market. A market worth billions. The strange part is that most people still think they're using the system. This created a new business model. Most people think social media companies sell content. They don't. Content is simply the bait. The real product is attention. Think about it. The longer you stay on a platform, the more advertisements you see. the more revenue the platform generates. Which means the most successful companies aren't necessarily the companies with the best content. They're the companies that can hold your attention the longest. And that changes everything. Because now every notification, every recommendation, every autoplay video is competing for the same limited resource: your focus. The disturbing part is that the system gets smarter every time you interact with it. But attention is strange. Because humans aren't naturally attracted to information. We're attracted to emotion. Fear. Curiosity. Surprise. Conflict. And platforms learned this very quickly. They discovered that certain types of content consistently generated stronger reactions, which meant more attention. And more attention meant more revenue. So the system began optimizing itself. Not for truth. Not for quality. Not necessarily for value. But for attention. The strange thing is, the system doesn't care what captures your attention. It only cares that it captures it. This is where algorithms enter the story. At first, algorithms were simple. Show people content. Measure engagement. Repeat. But over time, they became much more sophisticated. Now they learn. Adapt. Predict. And every interaction teaches them something new. What keeps you watching? What makes you stop scrolling? What captures your attention? This is no longer content distribution. It's behavioral optimization. The unsettling part is that the better the system becomes, the less visible it becomes. And that's where the story takes a darker turn. But there's a hidden consequence. Because when a system is rewarded for capturing attention, it starts prioritizing whatever works. And what works isn't always what's best. Sometimes it's outrage. Sometimes it's controversy. Sometimes it's fear. Because attention is emotional. The stronger the emotional reaction, the stronger the engagement. And the stronger the engagement becomes, this creates a strange feedback loop. The content that wins attention gets promoted. The content that gets promoted receives more attention, and the cycle repeats. Not because someone necessarily planned it, but because the system learned that it works. And once a system learns what works, it tends to do more of it. This is where attention becomes power. Because attention influences exposure. And exposure influences perception. Think about it. If one idea appears in front of you hundreds of times, while another appears only once, which one feels more familiar? Which one feels more important? Which one feels more true? Not because you consciously chose it, but because repeated exposure changes perception. And platforms understand this. That doesn't mean they're secretly controlling every thought. It means attention influences what enters awareness. And what enters awareness influences what gets remembered. The result is that attention quietly shapes reality. One recommendation at a time. One feed refresh at a time. Then AI arrived, and everything accelerated. Because traditional algorithms followed rules, AI learns patterns. It studies behavior, detects preferences, finds signals, then adjusts. Again, and again, and again. Which means modern systems no longer simply distribute content. They optimize for attention continuously. Every click teaches the system. Every pause teaches the system. Every scroll teaches the system. The more people interact, the smarter the system becomes. And the smarter the system becomes, the better it becomes at capturing attention. This is why the attention economy matters. Because attention isn't just entertainment anymore. It's infrastructure. It's business. It's technology. It's influence. Entire industries now compete for it. Platforms, advertisers, creators, AI companies, everyone wants the same thing. A few more seconds, a few more clicks, a little more attention. Because attention eventually becomes data. Data becomes intelligence. Intelligence becomes influence. And influence becomes power. Which means the battle isn't really about content. It's about control over attention itself. But there's an even stranger question. If platforms compete for your attention, and AI learns from your behavior, what happens when those systems know exactly what captures your focus? Not generally, specifically. You, your habits, your patterns, your preferences. Because every click leaves a signal. Every pause leaves a signal. Every decision leaves a signal. And over time, those signals become a model, a prediction system. That's where this story goes next. Not the battle for attention, but the systems learning from it. The algorithms, the predictions, the hidden models being built behind the screen. Because once an algorithm understands what holds your attention, the next step is learning who you are. And that's exactly what we uncover next.